One of the biggest things that I hate about the conversation surrounding cannabis is how dishonest the conversation is. I see so many comments on the online public square where stoners will say, there's nothing bad with cannabis usage, right? The most that happens is
Notes.
that you get the munchies and you raid your fridge, which is dishonest. There is something that happens when you consume weed, and to say that the only thing is just you getting a little bit hungry is a flat out lie, because if that were the case, we wouldn't have all these dispensaries popping up. We wouldn't have people going out of their way to obtain marijuana knowing that it might not be legal in their state or whatever, right? And actually, I have some containers here that I saved when I used to go to the dispensary. And on both of these containers, this one was for joints and this one was for edibles. It says, I'm going to read it to you. There is limited information on the side effects of using this product, and there may be associated health risks. Limited information on the side effects of this product. So to say that, oh, you just get the munchies is lying. I hate the.
Right, but that in itself is a whole thing. Of course, with any drug that you consume, there's always going to be a side effect, because we are different as people. Uh, each and every human being is not the same. We are all made up of different DNA. We all have different immune systems, but pretty much similar and the same. So they generalize, and once you are given a drug, of course here are the side effects to that. They run clinical trials and say here are the side effects to that. So in this situation, weed is still one of those topics that is like, we don't know really what the side effect is. Or if someone says there is a side effect, is, oh, I just got the munchies, right? They don't really go into depth about what it is that they truly experienced while smoking.
Dishonesty here. And truthfully, I used to be just like that, where I would say the same thing, but in retrospect, the reason I took that position was because I didn't want anyone to get in the way between me and my cannabis. Some of the side effects that I would experience is, number one, poor judgment. Okay, I'm sure we can all relate to knowing someone who has consumed some type of substance. Let's say alcohol is the big one that people can usually relate to, but this happens a lot with people that consume cannabis. Is they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know I did that because I was high or I was drunk." Right? They'll
Hmm.
blame it on the alcohol. They literally made a song after it, right?
Yes, they did. And weed is actually one of those things that people easily blame themselves, like blame what their actions on said product. So I actually was watching the first 5 minutes of this video and put down a comment in the comment section below about what it is that I believed. And I'll zoom in on this as much as I can. I said, I don't believe weed to be bad. It's not the product, but how the product is used. People who smoke on a daily basis use weed to escape reality. Just how you can find someone who is constantly drinking, they do so to escape the pain they feel from something else. Weed is an eye-opening drug meant to be used to connect to spirituality. You notice how Gothic said that when she smoked, it impaired her decision making. No, it highlighted already what you lacked as a person, and that was the ability to make decisions. I recommend when you smoke, you meditate. The Bible speaks on meditation. It's healthy, and you will feel more connected to your spirit. Now, it's not promoted to do so. Smoking weed is not promoted to do such a thing, right? When you smoke, no one talks about meditating while doing so. Mainly people just associate the good feeling you get from it. But when you smoke and you notice how someone else that is around you smokes, and you can feel what it is that their energy is like, you're connecting more so with your own energy and the energy to the person beside you. You notice when people drink how they become hyped or falsely They obtain this false image of themselves in a sense, and they become what it is that they are truly not, right? But that is simply just a reflection of them. When you watch someone get drunk, look at how they act, and that's the exact person that's inside, but it's unfiltered now because they're drunk and their brain is not processing that. Their brain cannot process that, so there is no filter there anymore. So now what they're saying, I would say take with a grain of salt, but look at how they are interacting with people around them. Same thing with smoking. If you see someone who smokes and they become nasty in a sense when they are high, that's because their own spirit is nasty. Their own person, their own individuals filled with hate, so they display that hate however they do it. Let's continue.
So it does something, it impairs your mind in some way. And yes, you have the different strains, you have the hybrids, the sativas, the indicas, whatever. My point that I'm trying to make is that weed does something to you physically or mentally. Otherwise, what is the reason of using it? Right?
It does something to you physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Wouldn't be no reason. So yeah, poor judgment. Another big thing is that people would, and I think is one of the reasons that I used cannabis for so long, was people use it to numb. I told this story recently. I went to a park here in Providence and I saw this woman. I'm assuming this woman was homeless, and she was telling me about how some random guy gave her a vape pen and she started smoking marijuana. And I told her, why don't you just throw it out? Like, why do you need it? Because for me personally, I've always used weed as a way to numb things, right? If I was too stressed out because of work or I was depressed, that was a big one, I would just use weed to numb stuff. And this woman tells me that's the point. Yes, I do want to numb things.
Exactly. There you go. So you have a woman who is being very honest in why she bought the product. It's to be numb. I don't want to feel what it is that I'm feeling right now, because when I'm just going through whatever it is I'm going through, and it's shitty. Like, look at me. I'm homeless. I'm on the side of the street. What person would want to feel that every day, right? So yeah, they'll fall back into something like that, and people who are more fortunate even fall into stuff like that as well. So they'll use weed as a crutch in a sense to try and heal themselves in a way. So if you're clinically depressed, they'll probably prescribe you marijuana and say, here you go, you'll feel a lot better. I feel like in that situation, yes and no. I feel like physically you will feel a lot better. Mentally, not so much. I feel like you will feel a lot worse when you wake up the next day and go, why do I feel this way still? When I smoked, I feel like it enhances what it is that you're feeling. And if you don't know how to control that feeling and or try and heal it in a different sense, then that feeling's always going to be there. So like I mentioned before, people use it to numb, just like how they use drinking to numb.
And that is so dangerous. Can you honestly say that you have defeated your depression if you know that you rely on a substance in order to keep that depression at bay? Like, I like to think in the worst case scenarios, if the dispensaries just closed down or every single marijuana dealer started lining their weed with fentanyl and there was a chance that you were going to overdose and die after smoking it. If you knew that you did not have access to marijuana anymore, can you honestly say that you have cured your depression or cured your anxiety? I remember one time I went to a Thanksgiving dinner and there was a specific family member that I was not on speaking terms with. I didn't want to speak to this person, and they showed up at this dinner and I freaked out. So what did I do? Instead of facing that head on, right, and dealing with that situation and trying to enjoy my Thanksgiving meal, I ran outside, took my vape pen out, and started puffing on it because that was the way that I knew how to cope with depression and stress and anxiety.
So there you go. I'll pause at the perfect thing. We're gonna read that. There you go. There's plenty of people out there who rely on a drug to feel better. There's doctors prescribing people, here you go, here's a drug to feel better, right? They're not trying to help you mentally with what it is that you have. They instead give you a drug to help you instead. And then you have a whole generation curated from, okay, but if I smoke and I feel better from smoking, then I'm gonna associate actually feeling good with this drug. So now these two things play hand in hand. So I need to smoke to feel better. I need to drink to feel better. And then you become entrapped in this cycle of something that can become very unhealthy. It's a whole thing. And it says right here, you say, I'm allowed to do anything. I love this right here, right? She pulled a verse from the Bible, Corinthians 6:12. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. Very much so, right? Do everything, even though it may not be good for you. But that is up to you to determine. That is up to you to know what is good for you and what is bad for you. You can do anything, just don't become a slave and fall into a pattern of doing it.
To me, that sounds like a drug addict. I don't know about you. That sounded like someone that I gotta get my fix. I gotta go, and it didn't actually fix anything. It creates this false sense of treating these things, and I think it also gets the person to not face things that are actually troubling them in their life, right? They kind of just lean on this as like sort of like a crutch. For me, it also gave me this false sense of contentment. And what I mean by that is like if you're living in a really bad situation or you have a lot of problems in your life, some people, if they feel content enough in that environment, it's not going to motivate them to do better. They're just going to say like, yeah, okay, my house is on fire. Who cares? I'm high right now and it feels good. It's like, I know it's a silly example, but it sort of gets them just content with that. And there's no motivation or initiative to work beyond it. So there's a lot of side effects that people don't talk about, not even getting into the decreased cognitive abilities, all right? The brain farts were a big issue, right? I'm not even talking about that, but just the spirit in general of the person when you're constantly consuming this stuff. For me, it depleted me. And again, if you are someone that smokes weed, do you. I have a drink every now and then. I just don't get drunk anymore. And I think it is very easy to fall into that habit of always using it as a crutch and not knowing when to step back and just essentially take the training wheels off and live your life without these things. On the flip side of me using weed as a way to deal with stress and anxiety, I also would use it as a way for me to be more productive in a sense, and also get the creative juices flowing when I was working on a project. And that's sort of an oxymoron, because on the one hand, I'm saying I'm going to use weed to not face my adversity head on, and on the other hand, I'm becoming dependent on this substance in order for me to be productive.
That is correct. That's very, very much true. People, again, like I said before, will become dependent on something and use that as a crutch instead of in themselves becoming more secure from that and leading with it, right? So again, people who will smoke will say, well, I was way more creative when I smoked, right? When I smoked, I became more creative. So this is something I have to constantly do to be creative. So you have now, what you did there, you have now limited yourself to a closed-minded way of thinking. So now someone who is constantly smoking is always under the impression that they have to smoke to be creative. No, like I said before, smoking is a gateway Legit, it's a threshold that you can step through to connect to yourself better. Do not do this. I'm not promoting smoking. I'm not saying do it 24/7 all day every day. That's not something that it was meant for. Smoking is not meant to be consumed every single day. It's not meant to be used as a crutch. Instead, it's meant to be stepped into as you're trying to discover yourself. Because again, as you smoke, you become more aware of the things that are around you. And yes, that does have an effect on your mental. Like you said before, it decreases your cognitive, right? Your thinking. It decreases your motor functions a little bit, right? Because it's an increase. You're boosting what it is that you're trying to become more aware of. You're boosting it. So it's the same sense of drinking an energy drink. Why drink an energy drink? Your body produces the energy you need on a daily basis, but you've been tricked into believing that caffeine is something that's healthy for you or is something that you need in order to start your day. So you have now become reliant on a drug to start your day. Caffeine is a drug. It's an addiction. It's sugar. You have now become dependent upon something that is not needed to start your day or to continue throughout the day. Your body produces enough sugars for you to healthily continue to push through what it is that you're trying to push through for the day, whether it's work or whether it's at the gym. So she made a lot of great talking points in this video. It piqued my interest. I was very interested in this because it's something that's very controversial nowadays when it comes to smoking, the benefits and the side effects from it. I think if you use anything as a crutch to try and solve what it is that you're going through, you're always going to be dependent on that thing, or you're always going to be dependent on that person. You're always going to be dependent on that object to solve what it is that you are currently going through. So instead of smoking and using that as a crutch to solve your own issues or to solve your own problems, let's instead use that as a tool to connect more to spirituality. Let's switch the use for it. So if you do continue to smoke, let's switch the use for it. When you do smoke, meditate. I guarantee you, every single time that you smoke, meditate, and you will feel a lot better because you will have a clearer mind. You will have a clearer mind. You won't want to smoke as much. Meditation. End it with meditation. I'm telling you guys, meditation is key.